The moment that made everyone stop and think was when Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile President Mohammed Ben Sulayem personally called Mat Armstrong after Formula One race. This was not a normal situation at all. Usually, people at that level do not directly contact YouTubers, especially not after managing one of the biggest motorsport events in the world. But this happened, and it tells us something very important. It shows that Mat Armstrong is no longer just a content creator fixing cars for views. He has reached a level where even the highest authority in motorsport is paying attention to what he is doing. Imagine the contrast for a second. On one side, you have Formula One, a world of millions of dollars, advanced engineering, and strict control. On the other side, you have a man in a workshop trying to rebuild cars that manufacturers themselves say cannot be repaired outside their systems. And yet, the connection between these two worlds happened through a simple phone call. This moment is powerful because it shows that real skill, real effort, and honest work can cross boundaries. It also shows that influence today does not only come from big companies or official positions. Sometimes, it comes from someone who is simply doing something difficult and showing the process honestly. That is what makes this story different and worth understanding. After understanding that moment, the next thing to look at is the rebuild work itself, because that is where everything started. Mat Armstrong became known for buying heavily damaged cars and bringing them back to life. These are not normal cars either. We are talking about high-end, complex machines that most people would never even attempt to fix. One of the biggest examples is his work on a Bugatti. This is a car that manufacturers tightly control, where parts are expensive and access is limited. Normally, if something goes wrong, the only option is to go through official channels, which can cost a huge amount of money. But instead of following that path, Mat decided to figure things out himself. He took the car apart, studied every component, and slowly worked toward rebuilding it. This process was not quick or easy. There were problems at every step, from missing parts to technical challenges that had no clear solution. But that is exactly what made the rebuild so interesting to watch. People were not just seeing a car being fixed. They were watching someone solve problems in real time. That is very different from traditional content, where everything is planned and polished. Here, the uncertainty was real, and that made an engaging point. One of the key reasons why these rebuilds stand out is the way problems are approached. In most official repair environments, the process is simple. If a part is broken, replace it with a new one. But Mat Armstrong does not always have that option. Sometimes the parts are too expensive, unavailable, or restricted by the manufacturer. So instead of stopping, he looks for alternatives. He studies how the part works, what its purpose is, and whether something else can do the same job. This kind of thinking leads to creative solutions that are rarely seen in traditional repair settings. For example, finding shared components across different car brands or using simpler fixes instead of costly replacements. This approach not only saves money but also reveals how these cars are built. It shows that even the most complex machines are made up of parts that follow basic principles. And once you understand those principles, you can start to work around limitations. This is what makes the rebuilds educational as well as entertaining. Viewers are not just watching, they are learning. Another important part of these rebuilds is the honesty in showing failures. Not every attempt works the first time. Sometimes a fix does not solve the problem, or a new issue appears after something is repaired. Instead of hiding these moments, Mat Armstrong includes them in the videos. This adds a level of realism that is often missing from other content. It also helps viewers understand that failure is a normal part of the process. When people see that even complex problems can be solved step by step, even after mistakes, it builds confidence. It changes the way they think about challenges in their own lives. The rebuild becomes more than just a technical project. It becomes a demonstration of persistence and problem solving. This is one of the reasons why the videos connect with such a wide audience. You do not need to be a car expert to understand the journey. You just need to understand the idea of trying, failing, and trying again. As these rebuilds gain more attention, their impact started to grow beyond just viewers. People inside the automotive industry also began to notice. Even technicians working with major brands started watching these videos. This is interesting because these professionals already have access to official training, tools, and information, yet they still find value and watching someone work outside that system. The reason is simple. The rebuilds show a different way of thinking. They focus on understanding rather than just following instructions. This can lead to insights that are not covered in training manuals. It also shows that knowledge is not limited to official sources. Sometimes, new ideas come from experimenting and questioning existing methods. This exchange of ideas between independent creators and industry professionals is something new. It shows that learning can happen in both directions, and it highlights how powerful open, shared knowledge can be. Over time, the rebuild projects have also started to influence how people think about challenges in general. The idea that something is impossible begins to change when you see it being done step by step. Mat Armstrong shows that many problems are not truly impossible. They're just difficult and require effort, time, and creativity. This message applies to more than just cars. It can be applied to any field, whether it's starting a new career, learning a skill, or taking on a personal project. The rebuilds act as proof that progress is possible, even without perfect conditions. This is why the content resonates with such a wide audience. It is not just about mechanical work. It is about mindset. And once people understand that mindset, they start applying it in their own lives. That is when content becomes something more than entertainment. It becomes a source of inspiration that, in the end, everything comes back to the same idea, doing the work and showing it honestly. From the unexpected phone call with the FIA president to the detailed rebuilds of complex cars, the journey is built on consistency and effort. Mat Armstrong did not reach this level by following traditional path or trying to impress anyone. He simply focused on solving problems and sharing the process. That is what people connected with, and that is what continues to drive the story forward. The future may include bigger projects, more complex challenges, and new opportunities, but the core approach will likely remain the same. Try, learn, fix, and share. And as long as that approach continues, the influence will continue to grow. Because in a world where many things are controlled and polished, there is something very powerful about watching real work happen in real time as the rebuild journey continues. The scale of the projects keeps growing, but the method stays surprisingly simple, and that is what makes it so powerful. Mat Armstrong does not suddenly change his approach just because the cars become more expensive or more complex. Whether it is a relatively simple repair or a full hypercar rebuild, the process remains the same. Take the problem apart, understand it step by step, and then rebuild it with patience. This consistency is what builds trust with the audience. People know that what they are watching is not staged or artificially created for views. It is real work happening in real time. One of the most talked about moments in this journey was the fix on a Bugatti Veyron, where a major issue turned out to be something as small as a fuse. That moment became important not just because of the fix itself, but because of what it represented. It showed that even the most expensive and advanced machines can sometimes fail due to very simple reasons. And more importantly, it showed that you do not always need a massive budget or official support to solve a problem. Sometimes, you just need the willingness to investigate and try different solutions. This idea challenges a traditional belief that only manufacturers have the answers. It opens a door for independent problem solving and encourages people to look deeper instead of immediately relying on replacements. As more people watch these rebuilds, they start to see patterns. They begin to understand how systems work, how problems are connected, and how solutions can come from unexpected places. This learning process happens naturally, without formal teaching, simply by observing and thinking along with the builder. And that is where the real value lies. It is not just in the final result of a repaired car, but in the knowledge gained along the way. Each rebuild becomes a case study, a lesson in persistence, and an example of how complex challenges can be broken down into manageable steps. Over time, this creates a new kind of audience, one that is not just watching for entertainment, but actively learning and applying these ideas. That shift is what makes the entire journey more meaningful. It turns a series of videos into something much larger, a source of practical knowledge, inspiration, and a reminder that even the most complicated problems can be solved if you're willing to take them on one piece at a time. As these rebuilds continue to reach more people, another interesting change begins to happen, and it is not just about cars anymore. The audience itself starts to evolve. Viewers who once watched only for entertainment begin to think differently about problems in their own lives. They start noticing how Mat Armstrong approaches challenges, how he stays calm when things go wrong, and how he keeps moving forward even when there is no clear solution. This mindset slowly becomes the real takeaway from videos. People begin to understand that the process matters more than the result. It is not about fixing a Bugatti or completing a rebuild perfectly. It is about learning how to deal with uncertainty, how to break big problems into smaller steps, and how to keep going even when progress feels slow. This shift in thinking is what turns casual viewers into deeply connected followers. They are no longer just watching a project. They are seeing a method they can apply to their own situations. It could be starting a small business, learning a new skill, or even making a big life decision. The same principles apply. You do not need to know everything at the start. You just need to begin, learn as you go, and adjust when things do not work. This is something that traditional education or structured systems do not always teach clearly. But through these rebuilds, people see it happening in real time. They see the mistakes, the adjustments, and the final success, and that makes the lesson much stronger. Over time, this creates a deeper connection between the creator and the audience. It is no longer just about content consumption. It becomes a shared journey of learning and growth. And that is why the impact keeps increasing. Because when people feel like they are part of the process, they stay engaged, they pay attention, and they carry those lessons into their own lives. As this journey moves forward, something even more interesting starts to happen, and it happens quietly in the background. The line between the audience and the creator begins to blur. People are no longer just watching Mat Armstrong rebuild cars. They are mentally participating in the process. When a new problem appears in a project, viewers start thinking about possible solutions before the video even shows the answer. They pause, they guess, they discuss in comments, and they compare ideas. This turns the content into something interactive. Even though it is a recorded video, it creates a feeling that everyone is involved in solving the problem together. That level of engagement is very rare, and it comes from the way the rebuilds are presented. Nothing is hidden, nothing is rushed, and nothing is made to look easier than it actually is. Every step is shown, from the confusion at the start to the small breakthroughs that slowly build into a final solution. This process teaches people how to think, not just what to think, and that is a big difference. Instead of giving ready-made answers, the videos show how answers are found. This encourages curiosity, patience, and problem-solving skills in the audience. Over time, viewers begin to trust their own thinking more. They realize that they can figure things out if they take the time to understand the problem properly. This is especially powerful in a world where many people feel dependent on experts or official systems for answers. By watching these rebuilds, they see that knowledge is not limited to a small group of people. It can be explored, tested, and understood by anyone willing to put in the effort. Another important part of this is the sense of progress. Each project is not just a single story, but part of a larger journey. Viewers who have followed from the beginning can see how skills improve, how confidence grows, and how bigger challenges are taken on over time. This creates a long-term connection that goes beyond individual videos. People feel invested in the journey because they have seen every stage of it. They remember the early projects, the small wins, and the difficult moments. And when a major success happens, like bringing a complex car back to life, it feels rewarding not just for the creator but for the audience as well. This shared sense of achievement is what keeps people coming back. It turns a channel into more than just a source of content. It becomes a place where people learn, think, and grow together. And as long as that connection continues, the impact of the rebuilds will keep expanding, reaching more people and influencing how they approach challenges in their own lives.